How's it going everyone, it is Panjno here, and in this video we're going to be going over the ultimate FPS increase guide for Rust 2022. Inside of this video we're going to be going over all of the latest, greatest and most effective optimizations possible, regardless of how high, low end, new or old your PC or laptop is. This video is going to be aiming to help you achieve the best FPS possible, reducing your input latency and giving you the best gameplay experience possible. We're also going to be focusing on creating a competitive advantage whilst maintaining a good level of graphics fidelity. As always, if you do enjoy this video and are happy with your results, please do consider leaving a like on the video and a comment down below for the YouTube algorithm, as it helps me out tremendously. We're first of all going to be starting off with basic Windows settings. We're going to be quickly setting up a system restore point. There's no particular reason why you have to do this, but it's definitely recommended so you can follow along with this video safely, quickly and easily. Try out all of the optimizations, and if for any reason you can't remember how to turn something off, or if you just want to revert everything back after testing, you can do so very quickly and easily. Go to the bottom left hand side, click on the Windows button, type restore, select create a restore point. Inside of here, navigate down to system protection, go to protection settings, scroll down, select your local disk C drive. With it selected, go to configure, select turn on system protection, then go down and set this max usage bar to about 5%, select apply, select OK, then select create, and we can then name the restore point. I'm just going to be calling this Rust. The Windows restore point will be created, and you'll then be able to use it at any time after this video. First of all, starting off by navigating to the bottom left, typing in game space mode, selecting game mode settings, and ensuring that Windows game mode has been switched on. Next up for the basic settings is our Windows power plan. Take yourself to the bottom left hand side, type in power space plan, select edit power plan. Inside of this menu, go to power options found here at the top, go to show additional plans, and we're going to be selecting the high performance power plan. Next up is a quick web browser fix for those of you that use a Chromium based web browser such as Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome. On your web browser, go to the top right hand side to the three dots, click this option, navigate down to settings. Inside of this page, go to settings on the left hand side, scroll down to advanced, scroll down once again to system. You should see the option continue running background apps when Google Chrome is closed, and this will typically be turned on. And it's recommended to have this switched off, as having this turned on will mean that whenever you do exit out of the web browser, all of your browser plugins, extensions and applications will still run in the background, soaking up resources even though the browser is closed. For those of you that use Discord whilst playing, whether that's for streaming, talking, or if you just like to have it open in the background, something which you may want to consider is following a brand new video which came to the channel recently, which is the Discord debloat guide. Using the settings and optimizations shown in this video, you can drastically reduce the amount of resources which Discord pulls in, as Rust is incredibly CPU bound when playing in online servers, and you're going to need all of the CPU horsepower you can get. And this also goes for Windows as a whole. Running a debloated version of Windows, taking out all of the rubbish in which you don't use, cleaning up the operating system and optimizing it for performance is incredibly useful in achieving the best FPS possible. This is especially important again on CPU bound games like Rust. Next up, we're going to be jumping down to the bottom left once again, typing in device space manager, selecting device manager. Proceed to scroll down, go to the S section and find system devices. Click on the arrow next to this to go to the drop down menu, find the H section, and we're going to be looking for the high precision event timer. Especially for those of you running on a Ryzen based CPU, right click and disable high precision event timer. With this disabled, you could be seeing anywhere from a 5 to 10% FPS increase in some games, but more importantly, this can also reduce input latency. You can turn this on and off very quickly and easily on all systems, and I would definitely recommend experimenting around with this option, and for my personal recommendation, I would turn this off at all times. Next up, we're going to be optimizing the Steam application itself. For this, open up Steam, go to the top left hand side, then go down to settings, head down to library. Ensure that low bandwidth mode, low performance mode, and disable community content have all been selected, as this can help free up some resources from Steam. Inside of the Steam application, we're then going to scroll down to Rust. Once you find this, right click, head down to properties. If you do not use the Steam overlay whilst inside of the game very often, or you never use it at all, it is definitely recommended to turn this off. Head down to local files, then head to browse. Inside of the game files, we're then going to navigate down to rustclient.exe, right click, head into properties. Go to the compatibility tab. For those of you running on lower end systems and older versions of Windows 10, you will want to enable the disable full screen optimizations tab. With that then selected, we can then navigate down to change our DPI settings, check the option for override high DPI scaling behavior, select OK, apply, and OK. We're also going to navigate up to the directory path, double click in the blank space, and you'll then see the full directory. Go all the way from the right hand side to the left by highlighting and selecting, right click, select copy. With that copied, head down to the bottom left, type GPU space settings, navigate down to graphics performance preference, select browse. Go up to your navigation bar once again, remove anything with inside of here, right click in the blank space, select paste, then press enter. Then select the rustclient.exe, then select add. Scroll down, click on the exe, go to options and have this set to high performance. Select save and exit out. It is then recommended to keep the Rust directory open in the background, as we're going to be coming back into this later on in the video. It is also recommended to ensure that Rust is installed to an SSD. For the last few years or so, Rust pretty much will only exclusively work properly on SSDs. With large scale servers and modded servers especially, if you notice that you crash a lot of the times when you're loading into Rust servers or having a lot of crashing issues in general, double check to see where your Rust is installed, and if you can move the install, make sure that you do that. This now leads us on to the BIOS section of the video. This is quite an advanced section, and this isn't going to be an outright tutorial on what to set in the BIOS, but more of a guidance into what to research for your system after this video or in the near future to see which settings are available for you and what will work best on your system and what can really give you the best FPS on Rust. Running your memory in XMP mode is fantastic, but if you can also jump in and do some manual memory overclocking and timing tuning, that is going to be absolutely huge in every CPU bound game in which you play. Alongside applying an all-core CPU overclock, rather than using something like Ryzen PBO, which you may be familiar with, as this will optimize your CPU towards multi-threaded performance, where CPU bound games really come alive. You can also experiment around with turning on or off the CPPC and CPPC preferred cores option within inside of Ryzen BIOSes, especially for Ryzen 3 and Ryzen 5000 series CPUs. But this is definitely something which you should look into to ensure that you are getting the best performance possible. On any gaming PC where these features are available, optimizing your BIOS and ensuring that you're getting the most out of the hardware in which you have could see you net up to 30% performance increases. Next up, for the Windows optimizations, we're going to be going over the ISLC or Intelligent Standby List Cleaner program, which I recommend in practically every single one of my videos, and will continue to do so because it's a fantastic, easy to use 2-in-1 optimization tool. Use the link in the description down below or do a quick Google search. Once you're on this webpage, scroll down to the official download here section, click this button. With the program downloaded, select open, click on the 3 dots, select desktop, OK. Select extract. Once extracted, go inside of the folder, double click on the Intelligent Standby List Cleaner.exe to open this up. The first box needs to be set to 1024, the second box needs to be set to half of your available system memory, which you can see listed on your PC in the top left hand side. For me that's going to be 16,000. Head over to the right hand side to wanted time resolution, set this to 0.50, use your delete key to remove the other values. Enable the custom time resolution. ISLC polling rate should be set to 1000 for lower end systems, and for high end systems you can set this to 500. We then need to hit purge standby list and start. As you can see for me in the top left hand side, I'm currently using 13 gigabytes of my available 32. Selecting purge standby list is going to clear this out completely, meaning that we've now freed up 13 gig of RAM. Head to the bottom right to hit start, so this applies this automatically. Then whenever we play Rust, or any demanding game for that matter, I personally do this all the time, select start, minimize the program, and play your favorite game. One thing worth noting, once you've started ISLC, in the top right hand side, if your current timer resolution doesn't match up exactly to 0.5 and you're at 0.4 something or 0.51, this could actually be introducing more input latency into your game, as you will need your time resolution to be exactly at 0.5. If it's not, simply head down to the bottom left hand side, type in CMD, right click on command prompt and run this as an administrator. In the description down below you'll be able to find the HPET commands which you'll have to copy and paste with inside of here. Find the first command, which will be useplatformtick yes, highlight all the way from the right, copy, head into the CMD, press Ctrl and then V on your keyboard to paste, then press enter. Once that operation has successfully been completed, find the next command, which will be disabledynamictick, right click, copy, head into CMD, Ctrl and V, enter, and last but not least for the last value, which is use platform clock, all the way from the right, copy, head into CMD, Ctrl and V, enter. The last command may spit an error up, that's completely fine and normal. Once those have then been applied, exit out of CMD. You will not notice any change to ISLC immediately, as you will have to restart your system for that to take effect. And you should then see that your current timer resolution is exactly 0.5. Before jumping into any optimizations, for both AMD Radeon and Nvidia users, you should definitely look into updating your GPU drivers. Both AMD Radeon and Nvidia have launched some fantastic features which are only available with the latest drivers, which were released early 2022. If you haven't manually updated your GPU drivers before then, make sure that you do this, as you will not have access to some of the features we're going to be using in this video later on. Before installing your latest graphics card driver, I'm going to do a quick shout out to a video which is incredibly important if you are wanting to achieve the best FPS possible. Fix any potential performance issues, game crashing, or even PC crashing you could be experiencing from GPU drivers which you currently have installed. We have the clean GPU driver installation tutorial, and we then have the Nvidia GPU driver debloat video, which will show you how to remove all of the excess bloatware, features, changes, and unused rubbish from Nvidia drivers, helping to lower the amount of CPU usage from the drivers, alongside improving performance, reducing input latency, and further optimizing your system. Both videos can be found on screen now and linked in the description down below, and I cannot recommend watching those enough. With the latest GPU driver installed to your system, whether you're running on an AMD Radeon or Nvidia card, right-click on your desktop and open up either inside of the Nvidia control panel or AMD Radeon software panel. For Nvidia users, head to the top left-hand side to adjust image settings with preview. Use the advanced 3D image settings have been selected, select apply. Head back over to manage 3D settings. If you're running on a GTX 10 series or newer, this will enable the Nvidia image scaling or NIS option within inside of the drivers. This is absolutely fantastic, and we've done a full video on the channel going through this, but for the most part on Rust, because it's such a CPU bound game, I would only recommend using image scaling if you're running on a relatively lower end or old GPU. Next up, we're going to scroll all the way down to power management mode. We're going to be setting this to prefer maximum performance or normal. Prefer maximum performance will raise your idle clocks ever so slightly, but can help with stuttering issues you could be experiencing with inside of the game. Your OpenGL rendering GPU should be set to your GPU. Preferred refresh rate should be set to highest available. Anisotropic sample optimization should be enabled. Negative LOD bias is going to be set to allow. Texture filtering quality set to high performance. Trilinear optimization on. Threaded optimization auto. Head down to apply. On the topic of GPU optimization, it is also recommended to potentially look into GPU overclocking. Again, this is only really going to be for those of you running on older or lower end GPUs, as Rust is very CPU bound, but I personally run a GPU overclock in practically every single game in which I play, as I prefer to have the maximum performance possible at all times. And under the right game and right load, GPU overclocking could see you gain an extra 20 to 25% extra performance without having to spend an extra penny. Now, before we boot into the game, I'm quickly going to recommend that you download the RivaTuner Statistics Server or RTSS program, which you can see running in my game in the top right hand side. The reason we're going to be using this program, it's recommended, is that when we boot into the game, we can see how much of our GPU we're using, how much of our CPU, and more importantly, how much VRAM we're using. Because if we are drawing too much VRAM usage from the game and we don't have much VRAM available, we're going to be running into a severe bottleneck and running into crazy FPS stutters. To download and use this on pretty much any game, head into the description down below or do a quick Google search for MSI Afterburner, as RTSS will hook onto this program and we need both. So select download Afterburner. You don't have to do any overclocking to use this program, you can completely skip out the overclocking feature, then run the setup, select OK, hit next, and install RivaTuner Statistics Server and MSI Afterburner. The RivaTuner installer will open, run through that, select OK, install both of them. Open up MSI Afterburner, go to your task icon tray in the bottom right, this time find the blue monitor and double click, and this will open up RivaTuner Statistics Server. In RTSS, we first of all need to ensure that the option for show own statistics in the bottom has been switched to on. We can then set where we want our overlay to appear. I'm going to choose the top right corner, so select this corner. I like to set the application detection level to medium, and we can then head over to MSI Afterburner. Go to the settings icon within inside of Afterburner. Your version of the program could look slightly different. Head up to monitoring. Inside of monitoring, here are all of the options which we can check and enable to monitor within inside of the game. To enable something to be monitored, left hand side of it and select the checkable marker. Once that's checked, we can then click on the option, then select the option for show in on-screen display. As you can now see, this option has been marked as in OSD or on-screen display. The options which I'd recommend checking are going to be CPU usage, GPU usage, frame time, frame rate, GPU temperature, memory usage, your RAM usage. Scroll down until you find CPU temperature. You will also see CPU 1, 2, 3 and however many cores you have. You can just select the overall CPU temperature and enabling those options. When they've been selected, go to the bottom right, select apply and OK. Inside of MSI Afterburner, we then lastly need to go to on-screen display, go to toggle on-screen display at the top and set this to a key on your keyboard that you'll remember how to use that is not commonly used. So for me, I just like to use slash, select apply and OK. With those two programs open and running in the background, head into Rust. Once you've loaded into the game, press the key on the keyboard in which you set up for RTSS and you should then see all of that information appear in the top right corner. As you can see for me currently, I'm using 17% of my CPU, 60% of my GPU, we're getting around about 175 frames per second, we are using 5.8 gigabytes and RAM usage is at 16 gigabytes. The main reason we've opened this up is primarily to see our memory usage or VRAM usage within inside of the game, as this is going to dictate what graphics settings you're going to be going with, as you don't want to max out your VRAM usage constantly, as this will introduce micro stuttering and performance issues. If you want to see the max amount of available VRAM for your graphics card, once back inside of Windows, hit Control, Shift, Escape to open up Task Manager, head over to the Performance tab. Inside of Performance, scroll all the way down, click on your GPU. Scroll down once again, you'll then be able to see the dedicated GPU memory. For me, on this GPU, I have 12 gigabytes available, meaning that the maximum memory usage I can have within inside of the game is about 11,000. This number may be different for you, but remember this is the golden number that we don't really want to get anywhere near. Regardless of the number you see in here, I would recommend taking your maximum number and removing about 10% off of it, and that should be your maximum goal. We can now jump in and apply all of the recommended in-game settings for both visual fidelity, competitive advantage, whilst giving you the most FPS possible, starting off with the options menu. Field of view primarily is going to be personal preference, but set this however you wish to do so. The only option we need to change with inside of here for performance is going to be scrolling down and changing max Gibbs to 0. If you do want a few of these enabled, I'd recommend setting this to about 24 at the most, but for most people set this to 0. Once that's done, head over to user interface. We want to turn off the inventory player model. With that completed, head down to screen. Your resolution should be set to your monitor's native resolution unless you're planning on using something like NIS or Radeon RSR, which we'll be getting to later on in the video. But for now, set this to your monitor's maximum or native resolution. Your screen mode should be set to exclusive only, as exclusive full screen will remove some of the Windows full screen optimizations, lower input latency and improve performance drastically. VSync should be switched off and your FPS limit should be set to 0. If you're wanting to limit your FPS towards the end of the video, we're not going to be using the FPS limit within inside of the game because it's inconsistent. This now moves us on to the graphics, image settings and experimental tabs. On the left hand side, on the right hand side of the screen, you'll see two options for all of these settings panels in which are recommended. On the left hand side, we have options recommended for those of you that are trying to achieve less than 4 gigabytes of VRAM usage. And on the right hand side, we have the best recommended settings for FPS and performance to those of you running on graphics cards with anywhere from 6 to 8 gigabytes of VRAM available. For those of you running on 4 gigabytes of VRAM though, you should only be using the settings on the left hand side. Moving over to both of the image settings profiles, just simply copy all of the settings on screen now into your game, and lastly with the experimental. Once you go back inside of the game, as you can see for me, I am now using 6 gigabytes of my available VRAM, meaning that I'm nowhere near my maximum usage, and we have about 6 gigabytes of VRAM headroom, which is absolutely fantastic, meaning that we shouldn't be running into any terrible GPU bottlenecks. As you play for longer and longer without restarting the game, you will notice that your VRAM usage will typically go up over time because you're loading in other assets and it's keeping a lot of those assets in the RAM available. Whilst you're playing, I'd recommend not using RTSS and just keeping that off, so press your hotkey to remove the overlay. But if you notice that your FPS is starting to slow down or you're running into FPS issues, it's always fantastic to simply press that hotkey, but you can quickly and easily see your temperature of your GPU, your CPU, to get a relatively clear indication as to what it might be that's causing the low performance. Some of the time it could just be the game being unoptimized, where you may be in an incredibly complex scene, but if your VRAM usage is very high to what the maximum is for your GPU, or your CPU or GPU percentage is incredibly high, you know those might be the issues, and it may be time to do a quick log out, close out of Rust, reboot the game, and see if those issues go away. If that VRAM usage does creep up very quickly, or you're constantly very close to the barrier, jump back within inside of your settings and dial a few of those in-game settings down ever so slightly, just so you can give your maximum VRAM usage a little bit more headroom, as we don't want to constantly be banging into that limit. And this now leads us on to one of the most important steps within inside of this video, where we can either drastically improve performance or drastically improve graphics. And this is going to depend on how much percentage usage is coming from your GPU. As you can see for me currently, I'm using 65 to 70% of my GPU usage, meaning that I have a ton of headroom. For those of you with high GPU usage, we're going to be utilizing AMD's RSR or Nvidia's NIS screen scaling technology to lower the in-game resolution to improve performance, and have those upscaling techniques kick in to provide you with a fantastic looking image with a great performance improvement. On the flip side of that, if you're looking for the best visual performance possible and you're running on an Nvidia RTX based GPU, we can actually enable the brand new DLDSR technology, which will upscale our render resolution, and this uses the RTX tensor cores to apply an incredibly good looking upscaling technique. And if you're looking for a further performance improvement with this technology, you can also pair this up with using DLSS inside of the game. So if you happen to be on a lower end or older GeForce GPU, to enable this setting, jump into the Nvidia control panel, head into manage 3D settings. Inside of here, make sure that you have GPU scaling and sharpening enabled, and I personally like to set this to 15%, but the percentage is completely personal preference, so you can experiment around with this. Apply that setting, close out of Rust, boot back into the game. Once you've booted into the game, head down to your screen options, head over to resolution. You'll then have a few custom resolutions which will now be available to you. My personal recommendation would be to set this to 1 or 2 resolutions lower than your native. Apply this setting. You should then be able to see the NIS FPS option applied on the top left hand side of your screen, indicated by the now green NIS logo. Head back inside of the game, take a look at your FPS, see how much of a performance improvement there is. This will only tend to improve your performance if your GPU usage is already typically quite high, but in those cases you should see a fantastic performance improvement. On the flip side of this, if you're wanting to use Nvidia's DLSR technology on an RTX based GPU for a fantastic improvement to visual fidelity, jump into your Nvidia control panel, head to Manage 3D Settings, head down to DSR Factors. If you are running on the latest GPU driver and are on an RTX based GPU, you'll have the DL options available to you. Enable both DL options for deep learning, press OK and apply those settings. Boot back with inside of Rust. Once again, head over to your screen settings, resolution, and this time we're going to be setting our resolution higher than our native monitor's resolution. So if you have a 1080p monitor, heading to the right, you should now see an even higher option available to you. Jump back with inside of the game. If your GPU percentage usage isn't maxed out, you should not be seeing any performance impact from rendering this higher resolution, but you should see that the game looks absolutely fantastic and way more crisp, especially in long distance scenarios. Head back to your graphics settings and we can actually enable Nvidia DLSS with inside of here. Set this over to balanced or max quality and pair this up with the deep learning super resolution in which we enabled earlier. If you do experience micro stuttering inside of Rust, a fantastic and easy solution you can try once inside of the game is to hit F1 to open up the in-game console. In the in-game console, we're then going to type in gc.buffer space. You can set this to 2048. There is a limit to how far this can be pushed. The highest number you can input with inside of here is 4096, which is 4 gigabytes. You can experiment around with using that option, but do bear in mind that is going to take away from some of the RAM allocation on your system. You will have to enter that command every single time you play the game. The GC command stands for garbage collection. This is the way that rendering clutter is dealt with inside of Rust, and this process is inevitable. GC collection will happen whenever the allocated memory has been completely used up. So assigning more memory to this will mean that we can actually delay the process from happening as frequently. This is especially important for those of you playing on modded servers with a lot of players. So if you're running through different areas and you're noticing those horrible jarring FPS stutters where the game practically freezes, this will typically be because garbage collection or GC is happening. They will still happen, but they should not be happening anywhere near as much. We can then move over to GC incremental _ milliseconds, and we're going to set this 1. Another few useful commands within inside of the game is to type in steps and change the physics.steps option every single time you boot the game up to 60, allowing you to hit some of those monument jumps a little bit easier. This time we're going to be typing in VM, then using our arrow key to select graphics.vm _FOV _scale, changing this from true and typing in false. Enter. As you can see, that's now changed the position of my rock on the screen, making it a lot further out, and I personally prefer the way this looks. This can also help some people control recoil a little bit better. And the last command I'd recommend typing in is head lerp and selecting the client.headlerp _ inertia setting. This is currently set to true, setting this to false. This setting will change how quickly it snaps back to default view when using alt look. As we can see, I'm using alt look, I'm letting go of the key and it snaps back pretty much instantly, allowing the game to feel a lot more responsive. That is the ultimate FPS increase guide for Rust 2022. Make sure to leave your results, questions, queries, or other tips in which you may have in that comment section down below, and leave a like on the video to help out with the YouTube algorithm if you have enjoyed. If you have enjoyed optimizing your PC and are serious about getting the most performance possible and would like to learn more, consider watching the videos on screen now.